Hey there, Cinephiles. Today I wanted to talk about The Flash and whether or not it's the greatest superhero movie of all time. But before I answer that question, I really need to get into the timeline of events that happened before this film had finally made its way onto the silver screen, just because it's been a wild ride. Let's go all the way back to 2014. That's right, 9 years ago when The Flash movie was first announced to come out in 2018 starring Ezra Miller. As you can see, the film was delayed quite a few times, but somehow having 6 different release dates and 7 different directors attached wasn't the worst of the pre-production issues. No, what happened with the star of the film, Ezra Miller, and the crimes they've committed was unfortunately much worse. In fact, here's a quick list of things that Ezra did. They choked a fan, committed a felony burglary in Vermont, terrorized Hawaii and got arrested twice, acted inappropriately towards 2 different children, was a cult leader in Iceland, and that's not even all of it. This is just some stuff from 2020 to 2022. He's even done some stuff way back when filming The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It got so bad publicity-wise that it was unclear whether or not the film could even be released. It's alright though, justice was served, as they got punished by being rewarded with still being able to go to the premiere of the film and talk about it. But look, before the lights went down and I was finally able to watch it, I did my best to focus on the movie and see it for what it is. After all, why would Tom Cruise lie about a film being fantastic? So then it starts a bit awkwardly as the first frame comes up, but then we get into the first action sequence, and when I tell you that the CG looked like it was ripped straight from the Polar Express, I was floored. You're telling me that a 2023 $220 million budget looks like a PlayStation 1 game? What in the world was anyone thinking when they thought this movie looked good enough to release? Immediately this had lost me and never got me back on board. At least not really. It's so weird because the movie never picks up visually, and it's not a joke when I tell you that the leaked Deadpool test footage from so long ago looks better than the CG in this expensive feature. I mean, there's a scene with babies that actually makes Renesmee from Twilight look good. And the thing is, there's some stuff that actually might have looked cool visually if the CGI artists were allowed to take their time. But it ends up looking so stupid because it feels rushed even with a million pushbacks. Barry Allen running through the Speed Force should look awesome, but what I clearly learned the hard way is that IMAX is not the way to watch this. It just accentuates the flaws and gives you whatever the opposite of eye candy is, especially in a third act that's neither engaging nor pleasing to look at. But according to director Andy Muschietti, the VFX was supposed to look bad. Look, you don't have to defend every critique, my guy. But alright, that's enough harping on this piss poor VFX, even though the movie primarily attempts to rest its hat on it. There surprisingly is more to the film, most of it not being good. So let's start with the stars, shall we? Ezra Miller in a dual role of Barry Allen. We get them playing the older Barry, who is the one we're following the whole time, and we also get them playing a younger freshman in college version of him. Despite the facial VFX looking a bit off at times when both Barrys are on the screen, it was still believable that these two are coexisting. Did I love either performance? No, but I gotta give credit that at least it was convincing enough to not take me out of the movie purely on a performance level. It's just weird to me how Barry in this is practically a dollar store personality of Peter Parker Spider-Man. He tries to be this quippy hero, but it's just not likable to me. Not saying I hate him, but I also don't care for either version of him. Which, I mean, if you're not sold on him as a character, you will not like this movie because it revolves around a major motivation for him. Which in theory should work well, and it does for many others, but it just doesn't for me. Getting into the other characters that I know I must mention, Batman and Supergirl. The 2 Dark Knights we see in this film could have been better utilized for sure, but it was at least pleasant to see them on screen. If this is Batfleck's final film, at least I got to see him one last time on the big screen. To me, he will forever be one of the biggest fumbles of the DCU era. He could have been an all-time Batman if he was just written better. As it stands now, it's just one of the biggest whiffs in blockbuster history. As for Michael Keaton's Batman, I liked him in the movie. I mean, I just like Keaton as an actor, and I've never seen him with a bad performance, so there you go. There's no real impact if you're looking at him on the page, but Keaton just brings these little flares that I loved from his original Batman. But alright, now getting into the most misused character, Sasha Calle's Supergirl. First of all, she's barely in it, and she's in all of the marketing. This specifically isn't the film's fault, but it's just annoying when trailers and posters and all the marketing materials heavily feature a character like this. But what is the movie's fault is that she barely does anything even with her limited screen time. At least in the cut I saw. Apparently there was more of her, but it was too rated R, so they cut those action scenes. And it's because of this that it was hard to get a true gauge on Sasha's performance. I did like her screen presence, so I would like to see her in something else that allows her to breathe, but we'll see if that day comes. The only character I think was used perfectly and had a performance I liked was Mariabelle's Nora Allen. She was the emotional core of the film, and you felt the motherly love from her in every scene she was in. That being said, is Barry Allen Hispanic in the comics? I found it interesting that he's half Latino in this. Anyway, getting into the story of the film now, I did not care for how it continued to grow and develop. But before I can continue, I need to get into spoilers for this, so please jump to this time code if you don't want spoilers. First, there's a moment when one Barry says to the other, "Come on, Barbie," and the other followed it up with, "Let's go party," and then they run to fight. What? There's also a baby in the microwave moment, which is supposed to be funny. I was absolutely baffled at these choices. But the biggest moment of absurdity was when their multiverse was starting to collide. I understand the emotional arc of Barry having to accept the fact that his mother had to pass away and that not every problem has a solution, and on paper that's powerful stuff, but the way they go about showing the terrible consequences as a means of just showing cameos for prior Superman, one who had passed away and one who was never actually Superman. Yes, Christopher Reeves and Nick Cage are quote unquote in this movie. They're just CGI husk of themselves watching the Flash come to a decision, saving the multiverse by letting his mother go. It just felt so distasteful. It's absolutely a shame that Across the Spider-Verse just came out too, because that movie does cameos right in my opinion. It made sense narratively and worked with the themes. As for the end of the film, there was this opportunity to bring Keaton and Sasha back when Barely slightly changed the universe, but instead we get a Clooney cameo. One that's fun, sure, but emotionally, Keaton and Sasha should have been the ones to come back at the courthouse. It just would have actually been a nice narrative tie to what we just went through. Alright, getting out of spoilers now. It's absolutely crazy how the majority of buzz prior to the movie coming out was so positive. Ever since it was first shown at CinemaCon, I kept hearing how it was one of, if not the best superhero movie ever made. All for it to rely on the marketing to post about its audience Rotten Tomatoes score and definitely not its critic score. Also, with the low opening weekend, it may seem like the audience is tired of the DCEU and wants to move on. Blue Beetle, of course, has my attention, but I'm really over the rest of the DCEU. I just can't wait to get into James Gunn's DCU, and hopefully everyone else is too, so it's not dead on arrival. I give The Flash a 1.5 out of 5 stars. I can see why those who enjoy it, but this was not for me. This movie needs you to buy into this portrayal of Barry, and I just couldn't. So sadly, Tom Cruise has led me astray. But alright, those are my thoughts on The Flash. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Be sure to follow us on our socials. Stay tuned for more Yeti Films content, and I'll watch you later.